describe the office. So you don't have a very typical office.
No, mine is surrounded by a cage and involves gloves and the smell of leather and blood.
So you said glove up, throw down. Like where, I want to go back to the beginning. Where did fighting first come on your radar? Where did you kind of discover a passion for this?
I would say that I discovered my passion unknowingly when I started wrestling in high school. And I was 15 years old and I was looking for a sport to do. We had just, we're freshmen in high school. So sport seasons change from middle school. And women's basketball was the only women's sport offered in the winter season. But we all have a sport that we suck at. Mine is definitely basketball. Not my
good.
sport. No, I'm terrible. I can't jump high. I don't dribble a ball well. And nor do I care to be any better at it, right? Sometimes you have that sport that you're like, I just don't care to be good at this. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
It doesn't translate for me. And so my best friend at that time, Sharon, we were sitting in English class and she can't play basketball either. And she was like, do you want to go out for wrestling? And I was like, what? Like, they don't have women's wrestling. She's like, yeah, I know, but I don't think they can tell us we can't do it if they don't offer it for the girls. And I was like, touche. Let me go ask my mom. Went home, had the conversation with my mom. She's like, I don't think you're going to like it, but if you want to do it, I'm not going to tell you you can't. Thank God, because that was the problem for a lot of women as I progressed through my 4 years of wrestling in high school, was like trying to get more women to come out. And a lot of times the answer was, I really want to, but my parents won't let me. So I'm really grateful for my mom. And my dad, I cannot say that he was supportive because we kept him in the dark on that. Yeah, we did not tell him that I was wrestling for a while.
For how long?
Probably more towards the end of my first season, when my mom was really sure that I was going to stick it out.
You went a whole season. He didn't know.
No, he didn't know.
Wow.
Yeah, and he wasn't too thrilled when he found out. You're what? with who? With boys? Like, he didn't like the idea, but I was already hooked at that point.
Did you face a lot of those types of reactions of people asking, why are you doing this? Like, what was the reception of your teammates on the team?
I did not have a good reception when I first came out for the team. It felt like, we've been through this drill before. We just got to make it really hard on these girls and they'll quit.
Really?
That was the perspective.
They were trying to make you quit.
Oh yeah. I mean, there was no doubt about it. They just didn't think that women belonged, nor would we be able to hack it. It just wasn't something that was for women. We weren't strong enough, tough enough. We couldn't do it. And it was just kind of like, okay, let's get them out of here,
What about your friend Sharon? Did she end up being on the team with you?
Yeah, she did. And so we primarily wrestled against each other, but with one distinction. My junior year, for some reason, she decided not to go out for wrestling, and I remember being so upset at her because I was like, I'm going to be the only girl. Like, you're my main training partner. But it ended up being the best thing, because then I was forced to train with the guys every single day. And it actually taught me a lot, and I learned I learned so much more. The physical differences between men and women are pretty clear. But when I was competing against them, I started to learn different movements and different ways of being athletic. So I started distinguishing, what is the difference? Like, why is it that they get these things and I don't? And I'm like, you know what? When they shoot, it feels like a brick wall's hitting me. I was like, let me try to feel like a brick wall, the best that I can. Like, I'm not going to rely on my flexibility in this. I'm actually just going to try to be as powerful as I can. And I switched my objectives and those things. And yeah, maybe I wasn't as strong as them, but I certainly became stronger than other females that I was training, that I would compete against.
With wrestling being kind of your primary background, where did MMA first come on your radar? Because that's a bunch of different disciplines on top of wrestling.
It certainly is. So when I went to college, I stumbled across an MMA club sport, and I really would like to say, again, another woman who gave me an idea, and I wasn't super reciprocative. Her name's Rosalia. She was a dorm mate of mine, and she did karate. And she's like, I've been looking for, martial arts here at the school, and I found it, and I would like you to come with me. And I said, no, thank you. I said, no, thank you. I did not think, I was like, I don't wear a karate suit. I've never done karate. I just wrestled, and I don't think that makes sense for me. And so she actually went to the first practice without me, and then she came back, and she persisted to bother me about this. And that's how I looked at it at the time. I was like, you're bothering me. And she said, Miesha, these are former wrestlers, you know, because the wrestling program actually just got cut at my college. I think it was a year or two before I got there. So a lot of the guys who came there to wrestle, Central Washington University, were still there, but now didn't have a wrestling program to participate in. So they had created this mixed martial arts club sport. So I said, all right, you're not gonna leave me alone. I'll go check it out. And I went there and I was pleasantly surprised. On my first day, I learned how to choke people.
Really? That's a good first day.
It was a great first day. I was like, wait a minute, I think this is right up my alley. She's absolutely right. This is very thrilling, and it's something that I can add on to the wrestling that I already have. I'm very comfortable on the ground, and now you're adding submissions. Wait, what is this? An armbar? What is a triangle choke? What's a rear naked choke? Yes, please. And so I kept coming back.
Huh. So it's like you finally, is that the moment where you put the pieces together, like, this is it, this makes sense?
Yes and no. So when I said I kept coming back to learn only the jiu-jitsu aspect, which is just like the choke holds and the submissions. You know, a different objective than wrestling, where wrestling is obviously to pin and to nullify the opponent's movement, where jiu-jitsu allowed for more rhythm and flow. But I was completely against learning any striking because I had zero desire to fight. So when they would teach striking, I was like, no thanks, I want to go over in the grappling part and just continue learning grappling. And the question came up at some point, would you ever think of fighting? And I was like, hell no, not a chance. I'm not a violent person. I don't want to hurt anybody, and I don't want to get hit in the face either. So this just does not sound like something that appeals to me. I think I'll just stick to the jiu-jitsu. And so it's so funny sometimes how little we know about ourselves.
Yeah.
But I was pretty dead set against learning any of that because I'm like, I never want to fight anybody. You know, I was actually like, I'm a pretty even keel, nice person. I'm the first person to walk away from a conflict all through school. Like I never felt like I had anything to prove. I just really enjoyed competition. And I didn't look at fighting as competition. I didn't know that yet because I hadn't really seen the UFC. I wasn't following it. I did not look at fighting as a sport. I looked at it as like something you had to be angry. And that was like a naive perception. But back in the early to mid 2000s, I mean, that was kind of a lot of people's perspective on fighting was, you know, you hear the things like, oh, it's human cockfighting, and sponsors were afraid to be a part of it. Nobody really knew what to make of that. And that was for men fighting. Then imagine women fighting.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very taboo. So I was pretty dead set against it. And then I'll tell you what happened. I got invited to my first amateur MMA event. And I went and I had a visceral reaction to those fights. I mean, I was sweating. I felt like my heart rate went up. I felt like I was literally a part of that competition. And what I also saw were things that resonated with me. I saw heart. I saw passion, I saw determination, I saw the will to never give up, I saw people digging deep, I saw all these things in that moment, and I realized, wait a minute, this is not fighting. Like, this is a competition of hand-to-hand combat. And so it was very beautiful to me. And if destiny wouldn't have its way any other way, as the audience was leaving, I was kind of sitting there taken back by this whole fight card that I'd seen. And the intercom comes on and an announcement is made that in 3 weeks they're going to be hosting an all-female fight card. So in your wildest guess, what do you think I did?
Signed up.
I signed up. Yes, I did.
To your ears.
I did. I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest, but I've always been kind of that, what's the worst thing that could happen kind of person. What's the worst thing that can happen? I just figured, look, I'm going to jump right in. And I did that with wrestling. I did that with MMA. I've done that in so many things in my life. And sometimes, you know, I crash and burn and I learn very valuable lessons. And at other times I find very high rates of success in what I'm doing because I'm really giving everything to that. So when I signed up, then I had 3 weeks to try to learn striking, which obviously, you know, you don't learn anything in 3 weeks.
No,
No, you don't learn anything. So I tried to make that fight, not even intentionally, I guess, but it was just a wrestling match. You know, I tried to make that fight. And it was a very interesting first fight. I'm happy to go into that if you want, but it's a story.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, okay. So I show up for my first fight and I'm warming up in the back. And mind you, I've never been hit in the face.
Right.
You know, I mean, I've never been in a fight, minus like third grade when a little boy wanted to and I beat him up, by the way. We'll save that story for another time.
Okay.
Third grade, and it was not something that I wanted to participate in. I was cornered. So I walk out to my fight, and I am cool as a cucumber because I feel like I just feel calm. I don't know. I just felt at home. I didn't feel worried. I didn't have a lot of anxiety, and I'm fighting a Muay Thai kickboxer. So very much a striker versus I won't even say a grappler because I really didn't know submissions that well even yet. So I was mostly a wrestler. So my first takedown, I get it. I'm like, that was so awesome and so easy. I'm used to wrestling guys. It was like slicing through warm butter. So I was so proud of myself. I'm like, that is so easy. And I pretty much just held her down for 2 minutes because I didn't know how to punch on the ground. I forgot I could even do that. I was so new.
You're still wrestling mostly.
Still wrestling. Yeah. So I go back to the corner, and I remember their advice was, you can hit on the ground, right? And I was like, oh yeah. Well, let me try to work on that. Problem was, second round came out, and I'm sure her corner probably told her, you've got to stop the takedown, so let's implement some things, right? So she puts me in a Muay Thai clinch. For those of you who don't know, it's basically they kind of grasp both hands behind the back of your head, and then the forearms go more on your collarbone area, and they kind of press into you. So that now, closing distance on her became an issue. And she begins kneeing my face, one of which, clean on, smashes my nose.
Oh, man.
Breaks it real bad. And I still can't figure out how to get past this because I don't even know what a Muay Thai clinch is. I didn't know what it was. I'd never been put in this position. So she's kneeing my face, and I think I'm shooting in, and I think at this point I'm probably almost diving at ankles, just trying to get past this guard she has on me. And I kind of slide down to her feet, and she comes around to my back, and she gets her hooks in, and she's trying to choke me, and I'm in a ball. And I remember being on my elbows and my knees, and a very vivid memory of blood pouring so steadily out of my nose that I'm watching this pool of blood get bigger in front of me, and I'm just watching blood. I mean, I'm pouring blood. It's not like drizzling. I'm pouring blood. And I'm also fending off, these chokes and things like that. But in this moment, it's very serene, and I'm very much in my own thought process. The rest of me has kind of gone on autopilot, but I'm watching blood, and I kind of come to, and I decide this is not the place I want to be in. I don't want to be under her. I'm the wrestler, and if we're on the ground, and I kind of lost my temper a little bit, if you will. And so I remember fighting with everything that I had to get her off of my back, and eventually we end up into where she's underneath me now. She's in the guard position. And I stood up, and I rained down punches from the ceiling.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and I finally, in that moment, realized what I was here to do. And it wasn't a wrestling match. It was a fight.
Yeah.
Full-on fight. And we stand up after round 2. And mind you, I think the rounds were only about 2 minutes then, so we've not a lot of time to work. And I go back to my corner, and I'm like, I've got this. I know what I'm here to do. And they're looking at me like they've see a ghost, like they're terrified. They've never cornered a female before, much less have they seen one with their nose smashed and blood all over. And I mean, it was all over me. It was all over. Liz was her name, the opponent.
Floor.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Very bloody match. And they're just like, we can't let you go back out. Yeah, so they threw in the towel.
You didn't get to go?
I didn't get to go back out. I know, such a terrible ending. It's like one of those stories, that doesn't have an ending. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
That fight doesn't feel like it had an ending. It felt like it was cut short. And I'll never forget the look of relief on her face when she realized that I wasn't coming back out. Because I finally feel like the beast had been turned on, that the fire had been lit, and I actually had a better understanding what I was there to do. So I was prepared to go out and smash in round 3, but we never got to write that chapter. So, I was sent to the back, and mind you, this was amateurs. I wasn't getting paid for this. Now they have rules and regulations for amateurs to keep them safer. They wear headgear, they wear puffy gloves a lot of times, they wear knee pads and shin guards. None of that. This was just like no holds barred fighting. And so I'm a poor, broke college kid that can't afford medical bills. So in hindsight, it was the smart decision. I could understand why they wanted me to not go back out for round 3. Part of me still wishes I could, finish that, but it motivated me a ton. I remember I was bleeding over a trash can, sitting in the back, pretty much by myself until my mom found me, and just thinking, I can do better than that.